Simulation failed. Casualty rate, 100%. Territory lost. Resetting scenario. The mechanical voice of the supercomputer, a cold female alto, echoed through the strategic command center like a pronouncement of doom. The massive holographic table in the center of the room flickered from a bloody red back to a neutral blue topography. "Damn it!" Colonel Sterling slammed his fist onto the console, sending his coffee cup rattling. "That is the 5th time in a row. The Chimera AI is cheating. It has to be. It's anticipating the flank before I even order it." "It's not cheating, Colonel," General Vance said, pinching the bridge of his nose, his eyes red from strain. "It's learning. It's a neural network. Every time you try a pincer movement, it updates its algorithm. We are fighting a brain that evolves 1,000 times faster than we do. And right now, gentlemen, that brain is kicking the United States Army's ass." The room was tense. This wasn't a game. This was the final beta test for the Aegis Defense Protocol, an AI designed to command automated drone fleets. If the human strategists couldn't beat it, they couldn't control it. And right now, the machine was proving that humanity was obsolete. If you believe that the human spirit is the one variable a machine can never calculate, hit that like button. If you think experience beats an algorithm every day of the week, comment human element below. Because today, a room full of geniuses is about to get a lesson from the guy emptying the trash. In the corner of the darkened room, almost invisible against the black acoustic paneling, was Arthur. He was 82 years old, wearing a gray jumpsuit that had "maintenance" stitched over the pocket in fading red thread. He pushed a mop bucket with a squeaky wheel. Squeak, swish, squeak, swish. The officers ignored him. To them, he was part of the infrastructure, like the air conditioning or the light switches. Arthur moved slowly, his back curved like a question mark. He dipped the mop into the soapy water, wrung it out, and wiped a smudge off the glass floor. But as he worked, his eyes, sharp, clear, and surprisingly blue, kept darting to the holographic map floating in the center of the room. He knew that map. He didn't know the digital grid coordinates or the glowing icons, but he knew the terrain, the valley, the river bend, the ridge line. He knew the mud. "Resetting positions," the computer announced. "Scenario, the Iron Pass. Enemy strength, superior. Friendly strength, critical. Objective, hold the line for 4 hours." "All right," Colonel Sterling said, taking a deep breath. "Let's try the hammer and anvil again. But this time, we delay the airstrike. We draw the AI into the kill zone at Sector 4. "It won't work," Major Reeves argued, tapping furiously on a tablet. "The AI knows the terrain limits. It knows we can't move heavy armor through the marshlands in Sector 4. It will bypass the kill zone and hit our logistics hub. We need to retreat to the high ground." "Retreat is not an option," Sterling barked. "If we lose the hub, we lose the war. We have to stand and fight. Deploy the M1 Abrams Battalion to the bridge. We hold them there." Arthur stopped mopping. He stood 10 feet away from the general. He looked at the hologram. The blue icons, friendly, were clustering around a bridge. The red icons, enemy AI, were massing in the north. Arthur shook his head slightly. "Bridge is a trap," he whispered. It was soft, barely audible. Colonel Sterling spun around. "Who said that?" The room went quiet. Sterling looked around and saw the old janitor leaning on his mop handle. "Did you say something, janitor?" Sterling asked, his voice dripping with condescension. Arthur blinked. "Just talking to myself, sir. Floor's slippery." "Then clean the floor and keep your mouth shut," Sterling snapped. "This is a classified briefing. Honestly, why is he even in here during a Level 5 simulation?" "Let him be, Colonel," General Vance sighed. "He has clearance. He's been cleaning this room since before you were commissioned. Carry on, Arthur." Arthur nodded and dipped his mop again, but he didn't move away. He watched as Sterling ordered the tanks to the bridge. "Execute," Sterling commanded. The simulation ran. The blue tanks rolled onto the bridge. The AI's red units stopped. They didn't engage. Instead, the AI launched a massive artillery barrage, not on the tanks, but on the hillside above the bridge. "What is it doing?" Reeves asked, confused. "It missed." "No," Arthur whispered. "Landslide." On the screen, the artillery shattered the rock face. Millions of tons of virtual debris cascaded down, wiping out the bridge and the entire tank battalion in seconds. "Casualty report. Heavy," the computer droned. "Defensive line breached. Game over." Sterling stared at the screen, his mouth open. It used the environment against us. How did it know the structural integrity of that cliff?" "Because it has access to geological surveys, you idiot," General Vance muttered, rubbing his temples. "It's smarter than us, Sterling. It doesn't fight fair." The room descended into chaos. Arguments broke out. Strategists were blaming the code, the weather settings, the hardware. Panic was setting in. The Pentagon brass was arriving in 1 hour to see a demonstration, and they were getting slaughtered. Arthur pushed his bucket closer to the table. Squeak. Swish. "Colonel," Arthur said. This time his voice wasn't a whisper, it was a statement. Sterling turned, his face purple with rage. "I told you to." "The AI isn't looking at the surveys," Arthur interrupted. "It's looking at the water." Sterling froze. "What?" Arthur pointed a gnarled finger at the hologram. "The river. See how it bends there? North of the bridge? The current undercuts the bank. The cliff is unstable. Any heavy vibration brings it down. The AI knew that, because it's logical. You didn't know it, because you're looking at a map, not the ground." Sterling scoffed. "And I suppose you're a geologist now." "Stick to the mop, old man." "I'm not a geologist," Arthur said calmly. "But I drove a tank through that river in 1951. And I know that if you park heavy iron under that ridge, you get buried." General Vance looked up. He studied the old man. He saw the way Arthur stood, not slouching anymore. The mop was held like a rifle, balanced and ready. 1951, Vance asked. "Korea, the Iron Triangle." "Yes, sir," Arthur said. "Hill 719. We held it for 3 days." Sterling laughed. "Sir, with all due respect, this is a hyper-realistic simulation of a modern battlefield. 1950s tactics don't apply. We have drones. We have cyber warfare. The Janitor's war stories are irrelevant." "The terrain never changes, Colonel," Arthur said, looking Sterling dead in the eye. "Mud is mud. High ground is high ground. And an enemy that wants to kill you thinks the same way, whether he's using a bayonet or a microchip." Vance stood up. He walked over to Arthur. "What would you do?" "Sir," Sterling protested, "we cannot take advice from the cleaning staff. This is insane." "We are losing, Colonel," Vance roared. "We have lost 5 times in a row. I'm willing to listen to a ghost if it gets us a win. Speak, Arthur." Arthur walked up to the glowing table. He looked at the array of forces. "The AI is aggressive," Arthur noted. "It pushes hard. It chases strength. You put a battalion on the bridge, it breaks the bridge. You put air support in the sky, it hacks the grid." "So how do we stop it?" Vance asked. Arthur pointed to a small, insignificant patch of green on the map. A swampy crossroads about 5 miles west of the main conflict zone. It was marked as impassable terrain. "Move 1 unit here," Arthur said. Sterling squinted. "There, that's a bog, and 1 unit. What good is 1 tank going to do?" "Not a tank," Arthur corrected. "A scout vehicle, light armor. Make it look like it's lost. Make it look like a straggler, separated from the main force, and turn off its digital shielding. Let it broadcast its position loud and clear." "You want to offer it up as a sacrifice?" Reeves asked. "Bait," Arthur said. "The AI is programmed to eliminate threats, but it's also programmed to exploit weakness. If it sees a hole in your line, a single broken unit trying to flank through the swamp, it will assume that's where you are weakest. It will assume you are trying to sneak a supply line through. "And then?" Vance asked. "And then?" Arthur smiled, a grim, toothy expression. "You wait. The AI will divert its heavy armor to crush the scout. It can't help itself. It's efficient. It wants to wipe the board." Arthur traced a line on the map. "But that swamp, we called it the Sallow. The crust looks solid, but underneath it's 10 feet of silt. You get a 60-ton tank in there, it sinks to the turret in 10 minutes. The database says that terrain is traversable for light vehicles," Sterling argued. "Exactly," Arthur said. "Light vehicles, not the heavy automated columns the AI is using. The AI trusts the data. It thinks if a scout can go there, a tank can go there. It doesn't understand ground pressure." General Vance looked at the map. He looked at the AI's red mass, coiled and ready to strike. He looked at Arthur's calloused hands. "Do it," Vance ordered. "General, this is suicide," Sterling protested. "We are diverting resources to a swamp based on the memory of an octogenarian." "That is a direct order, Colonel. Move Unit Bravo 6 to the coordinates Arthur indicated. Drop shields, broadcast on all frequencies." Sterling shook his head in disgust. He typed the commands. On the hologram, a single tiny blue dot detached from the main group. It wobbled slowly toward the green swamp sector. It pulsed with a distress signal. The room held its breath. For a moment, the AI did nothing. The red mass hovered near the bridge. "See?" Sterling smirked. "It's ignoring it. It knows it's insignificant." "Wait," Arthur whispered. "It's thinking." Suddenly, the red mass shifted. The AI paused its assault on the main line. A massive column of red icons, the AI's heavy shock troops, broke formation. They turned west. They were heading for the swamp to crush the flanking scout. "It took the bait," Reeves gasped. "Here they come," Arthur said, gripping the edge of the table. Come on, you soulless bastards." The red column entered the green sector. They moved fast, closing in on the lone blue dot. Then, the icons stopped. "Why did they stop?" Sterling asked. "They're slowing down," Reeves reported. "Speed dropping to 50%, 20%, 0%. "They aren't stopping," Arthur said softly. "They're sinking." The computer voice chimed in. "Enemy alert. Mobility kill detected in Sector 7. Multiple units immobilized. Engine failures detected." The AI's entire heavy armor division was trapped in the virtual mud. They were sitting ducks. "Now," Arthur said, his voice hard. "Hit them. Airstrike, napalm, everything you got. They can't move." "Launch all assets," Vance screamed. "Target the swamp. Fire for effect." The simulation lit up. Missiles rained down on the immobilized red column. Since the AI's tanks couldn't maneuver, they couldn't dodge. They were obliterated. "Enemy strength reduced to 10%, the computer announced. "Main force neutralized. Counterattack successful." The blue unit swept in and mopped up the remaining drones. The map turned entirely blue. "Scenario complete," the computer said. "Victory. Rating. Distinguished." The silence in the room was absolute. It was heavier than the defeat had been. Colonel Sterling stared at the victory banner floating in the air as he looked at the swamp on the map. He looked at Arthur. Arthur let go of the table. He picked up his mop bucket handle. Squeak. "You missed a spot over there, Colonel," Arthur pointed to, a coffee stain near Sterling's elbow. "Who are you?" Sterling whispered. "Really? Who are you?" General Vance walked over to a console and pulled up a personnel file. He typed in Arthur Penhaligon. He read the screen, and his eyes went wide. "He's not just a janitor, Colonel," Vance said, reading from the screen. "Sergeant Major Arthur Penhaligon, Distinguished Service Cross, Silver Star with Oak Leaf Cluster. He was the tank commander who held the Chosin Reservoir perimeter against 2 Chinese divisions with a single disabled Sherman tank." He wrote the field manual on asymmetric armor tactics in 1968. Vance looked up. The manual that this AI and you stopped reading because it was outdated. Arthur shrugged. Machines are smart, General, but they don't have fear. And if you don't have fear, you don't check the ground before you step. You just march right in. Arthur started to push his bucket toward the door. I'll be in the hallway if you need the trash taken out. Wait, General Vance said. Arthur stopped. Vance snapped to attention. He didn't care about the mop. He didn't care about the jumpsuit. He saluted the old man. Thank you, Sergeant Major, Vance said. Major Reeves stood up and saluted. Even Colonel Sterling, swallowing his pride, stood up. He looked at the man he had mocked, realized the depth of his own ignorance, and slowly raised his hand to his brow. Arthur looked at them. He didn't salute back. He just winked. Don't thank me, Arthur said. Just remember, you can program a computer to play chess, but war isn't chess. War is poker, and machines are terrible bluffers. Arthur pushed the door open and shuffled out, the squeak swish of his cart fading down the corridor. Inside the war room, the officers looked at the map again. They realized that the most valuable asset in the room hadn't been the billion-dollar server, but the $80-a-week janitor. Save that scenario, Vance ordered. Label it the Janitor's Gambit, and get me a copy of his field manual. I want every cadet in the academy to read it by Monday. Yes, sir, Sterling said, humbled. As the officers went back to work, analyzing the data, they treated the simulation with a new respect. They realized that technology is a tool, but wisdom is a weapon, and sometimes the sharpest blade is the one hidden in the scabbard of a humble life. We live in an age of artificial intelligence. We trust algorithms to tell us what to watch, where to drive, and how to live. But there are things a machine can never know. A machine knows the temperature of the mud. A man knows how it feels when it sucks the boot off your foot. A machine knows the odds. A man knows when to defy them. Arthur Penhaligon reminds us that we should never overlook the people in the background, the quiet ones, the ones cleaning the floors and driving the buses, because they might just hold the keys to the kingdom in their pockets. If this story inspired you to respect the wisdom of the past, hit that subscribe button. Share this video with a gamer, a soldier, or anyone who thinks they can beat the system. Let's remind the world that you can't code courage and you can't download experience.